Mr. Jason Blackburn, thank you so much for being our first ever guest on Deliberate Documentary. I appreciate you being here. Jason is a peer support specialist working in assertive community treatment. That means Jason is out in the community, lifting up our people and bringing prosperity to folks and bringing support to folks. The people in assertive community treatment and social work broadly do a whole lot of good for folks in our communities. So thank you again, Jason, for taking the time to be here today, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually kind of honored to be the first guest.
Thank you. To start, we can talk about things that we've seen. What has already shifted. I'm curious to know about the terrain that you already have crossed. So take me back to your start. What were you doing before this work found you, and were there any clues in your youth or in your beginnings that signaled that you would be helping people?
I can't say as if there were any that I would be in a helping profession. The only kind of landmark point to that is I spent a great deal of my life involved in scouting. I am an Eagle Scout, and I even transitioned over after I made Eagle to becoming an assistant scoutmaster in the troop that I helped start.
Yes, sir.
Anybody who tries to attain the rank of Eagle, you have to do a service project. You have to, write out the whole scenario of what's going to be happening, how it's going to take place. If there are any like drawings or schematics, you got to make those up. You have to coordinate the man hours into it. And the particular thing that I did in my neighborhood was the house numbers in the neighborhood that I lived in. They were all on this kind of like, it was a piece of particle board, and then you had the metal numbers kind of screwed into it. And growing up in South Louisiana, all the rain, everything else, like those things disintegrated after a couple of years. And so you would drive down a street and you're like, what house number is this?
Right.
And they had recently put reflectors in the middle of the streets for emergency service vehicles to know, like, especially if it was dark or something like that, where the fire hydrants were.
Yep.
And I had the idea, I was like, okay, let's make it even better. So what I ended up doing with that was I looked up some different kind of paints. And what we ended up I got permission from, I sent this out to all the EMS people, fire stations, police forces, ambulance workers, everything. They were all very supportive. And so we got heavy duty ship paint, and we made stencils, and we used a highly reflective orange paint for the numbers. And where you would see the reflective brick in the middle of the road, the whatever emergency vehicle could then look, and not only do they see the fire hydrant, they look down to the road. And they're going to know what part of the block they're in, because there would be whatever house was closest to that fire hydrant. That's what's house number would be in front of it. Later on in life, so I am a person that has had many years recovered from self-injurious practices at the hands of substance use. No matter what kind of recovery path you choose into helping others. At one particular low spot, I ended up in a sober living home called Oxford House. And after staying there and becoming enmeshed in how Oxford House does things, even on the state level, like restarting some houses when they had to unfortunately get rid of some people because they weren't, holding up their end of the bargain.
Yep.
Um, Opening a new house. I got the opportunity to go to work for them
Okay.
in Johnson City, Tennessee. Um, and that was where I really started getting into kind of like the helping profession. Um, I guess fortunately, I can say now is that they decided not to renew my contract after my 3-month probationary period.
Yep.
And going back into what you said, like, but when you said this, I thought it was very perfect because um, becoming a peer kind of did fall into my lap. I
Mm.
had gotten the news. I was at a conference
Mm-hmm.
in North Carolina, and I had gotten the news that they weren't renewing my contract, and
Yep.
immediately went into panic mode. Started calling people, and my mentor, the person that trained me to be a peer, was a person that I had known for a while already, and she was like, I've been trying to get you to be a peer specialist for some time now.
Yep.
Like, this is news to me. She goes, all right, let's not go there. I'm going to email you an application. There is a class coming up. Get me the application. I I run the course for the state. I'll find a way to get you in. And that was, um, matter of fact, as we sit here right now, um, I was in the middle of my training course to become a peer specialist. June 15th of 2015
Wow.
was when I was formally certified. So June 15th will make 11 years that I've been doing this.
That is amazing. Wow. And it sounds like that was the moment that you stepped in into
Mhm.
this role, into this industry. And so I'm curious, what did the field look like when you entered it? When you first stepped in, what were your experiences working with folks and then working with tools? And how did changes and turning points in any regard change and shape you as a professional and as a person?
Um, I'll briefly touch on how the work was with the people that I provided services to. Um, it was very challenging at first to navigate it.
Hmm.
The peer support programs I've taken two, so I took the one that Louisiana had, and I've
Yep.
taken the one that New Hampshire has, and they can only bring you so far
Hmm.
when it comes to being a peer on an assertive community treatment team,
Yep.
because assertive community treatment teams deals very specifically with people that have severe and persistent mental health challenges.
Yes, sir.
It was a textbook trial by fire. A lot of learning as I went. One of the things in my initial training course that I latched onto, don't be afraid to ask questions. The only bad question is the one that's unasked. I don't know, probably the first 3 months I was working as a peer, I was blowing up my team lead's phone all throughout the day. But that helped me greatly. People kind of overlook the importance of being able to have a cell phone available and to be
Hmm.
able to contact people at the drop of a hat,
Yep.
because I'm old enough to come from the time even pre-pagers. You had
Right.
to go to a pay phone and hope somebody picked up the phone. And so having the ability to have that cell phone while providing services was great. Learning the electronic health records, I probably have a leg up better than some other people in my position because I've had computers in my life since I was in the fourth grade. The first computer I ever learned how to operate was an original Apple Macintosh.
Wow.
But when it comes to being online and the internet or troubleshooting stuff on a computer, like a lot of that I'm self-taught by just going in and going, okay, what's this button do?
Right.
What's this button do?
Yep.
But making sure that I'm not clicking something that's just going to completely crash the machine.
Right.
A little while, but ask questions. And I was able to learn my first EHR was called Echo. That particular team that I worked on in Louisiana, they had also had iPads that we could take with us out into the field. They clued me into an Apple app. I think it was called like Note that you
Yep.
could open up and type stuff on. And then I would like track my day when I got to a client's house, when I left, and kind of like the body of what would need to be in the note. And then I would just email that to myself and in doing my documentation. One of the largest challenges I began to see, because being a peer support specialist, I focus a lot on solutions,
Right.
not just as a peer support specialist, but as a human being in recovery.
Yes.
Acknowledge the problem, move towards a solution. But then we changed EHRs,
Mm-hmm.
and you have these software companies that get into the field of trying to produce electronic health records, and they promise these mental health centers, promise them the moon,
Yep.
and they always fall short.
Mm.
Always fall short.
In what way? I'm curious. I'm curious when people are going through these things, what is worth keeping in your experience? When you're using these tools, what are the innovations worth keeping? And then I'm curious what costs exist that that are quietly take away energy that take debit. So like what's worth keeping and what is maybe creating barriers.
Okay, so I forget if it was the second or third EHR. Might have been a third that I had. That one was the first one that I ever encountered a calendar
Mm,
within um, within the program itself, where you could actually put on that calendar like, okay, I'm seeing this person here this time, whatever,
yep.
and you could have those blocks on the thing. The calendar was a lot easier to use than the current one that I am using,
Mm,
because I could just click on an appointment
yep.
and I could move it, just drag and drop onto a new open spot on the calendar,
Mm,
and it wouldn't ask me a question.
hmm. That's
Yes, it was
yeah,
just
okay.
drag, drop, much
Yep.
like you would drag a file and just drop it onto a folder.
Yep.
Especially in assertive community treatment, because we provide our services out in the community, nothing is truly ever static. Anything
True.
can change at any given point in time.
Yep.
Add an appointment, or um, you have to cancel an appointment. You can have your day planned out. I'm seeing this person this time, this person this time, this person this time, this person this time. But that's your hope that it's going to fall like that.
Right.
Generally, it doesn't. You have to be able to flex and flow like water. One of the other challenges I have personally with a lot of these documentation things is
Sir.
um, any EHR that I've ever worked with. One, don't acknowledge the contrast
Mm,
between a clinician and a peer specialist.
mm,
And so what I mean by that is like when I was using Echo, in order to be able to complete the note, I had to almost give a small psychosocial assessment. Like, what was their affect? Two different chambers of check boxes.
Mm,
And just in order to be able to do my notes, I had to come to learn what those words are. But these aren't words that are in our trainings.
mm-hmm.
I didn't know what labile affect type categories were. I actually had to sit there and look them up online. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And
Right.
then from coming to understand what the meanings are, then I was better prepared. Or I know what the other one was, is like when it got into tangential, or if there was word salad or those kinds of things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not something that a peer is ever prepared to make an assessment on. We can kind of guess after we've been in the field for a while. My first peer training, we were taught something called empowering interactions. It's very similar to motivational interviewing.
Mm,
One of my one of my favorite questions, not necessarily jab people with when I go into motivational interviewing trainings, when they start going over, like, what are the different things in motivational interviewing? I'm
mm-hmm.
always like, so why aren't we asking permission questions? And the answer is like, permission questions. What's that? They may just come at you with something they've never told you before, and they just wanted you to know that they're
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily ready to talk about it. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to have the insight to acknowledge it for what it is, and say, hey, would you like to talk about that further?
Yep.
Of forcing them to. Now, so to sum up the zoomed in part, more peer specific uh, electronic health records within the greater um, things, the greater programs. Peers are a part of the workforce.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
even making our way into hospitals now. Hospitals are starting to bring us into emergency departments to help with, people that are coming in for substance use. And
Yeah.
even when, after somebody gets hospitalized, brought to the ED for being in crisis, kind of provide that compassion and empathy that somebody needs when they're coming out of like that very escalated state. So, to the bigger picture, and this goes back to the software developers promising the moon, but giving a pile of rocks. It was either that second or third EHR. Um, you're going to be able to open your computer and do your documentation in the program.
Yep.
And then once you get back to the office, and you're on the office's internet,
Mm-hmm.
it'll automatically upload the documentation. So you
Wow.
could be out in the field, get in your car, not have to worry about linking up a hotspot or nothing.
Right.
You can open up your computer, the program. You could open up the program, and it would be like an offline version of the program where you could still enter in the information,
Mm.
and it puts it on waiting. And once the computer's back connected to the
Mm-hmm.
automatically sends it.
Yep.
Um, Mobile app was another thing. There was eventually that was going to be like one of the far out goals. We would have almost full functionality through a mobile app on our work phones with the EHR. Another instance of a company promising the moon but giving rocks. Where I currently work at, there was supposed to be this across the board integration into this one EHR. All of the interdisciplinary teams from ACT to adult services to child services in there. And it was also supposed to be able to have billing in there
Right.
as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that has been an absolute nightmare for the organization that I work for.
Mm,
It's kind of like that callus in the
mm.
11 years that I've worked as a peer support specialist is number 6.
Wow.
I went
Yep.
through 4 with the first company. I'm on the second one with the newest company that I've been working for.
Yep. And what's something that you've noticed is common across the 6 of them? Like what's a through line for better or for worse?
They don't come in and talk to the people that are actually having to utilize this, getting through a jam-packed workday. That is a common thread throughout all of them. The first company that I worked for, there were certain people within the company who were boots on the ground people that were considered what they called super users.
Yep.
And they were like the first people trained in it and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But before you even get to, okay, who are our super users going to be?
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be that roundtable discussion of, as a software development company, what can I do to make your life easier?
Mm-hmm.
That is the point of technology and innovation, is to make people's lives easier.
That's the truth.
And I have not seen that in the scope of electronic health records.
Yep. And so that highlights a really fascinating point that completely resonates. What questions should be asked but aren't? And what I'm hearing is that part of this is who we're asking the questions to. We should be asking these questions to the people who are using these tools every day or who are going to be using these tools. What's going to benefit them and or us, and what's going to make our lives easier? What's going to make it easier for us to do the work that we do?
Yeah, like I don't want it to be misconstrued that I'm devaluing in any way the importance of upper management, billing, payroll, whomever else, right?
Everybody.
That has their hands in working on or using these programs.
Right.
Everybody should be talked to.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're doing a treatment plan and you do this report and you're also doing a progress note. Okay, with those 3 things, as you said, what are the roadblocks? Do you have any ideas of how we can get rid of them?
Hmm.
And how else can we make your user experience better?
Right. Absolutely.
For me as a peer specialist, like I just do a progress note. My time as a peer specialist has taught me a lot of things, and I've gotten a lot of very valuable advice from a lot of people. I just, as a person, I also have a very good vocabulary, so I'm able to, make stuff look nice.
Yeah,
That's 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 one of the compliments I've always gotten from supervisors. Like, the contents of your note are great.
mm,
Sometimes it gets to a point in the back of my brain where a question is like, is this doing justice to the work of a peer?
mm, mm.
Because the work that peers do, while sometimes it runs on a parallel to clinicians, it's still very different, or it can be very different.
Yeah, and I think that our audience would really benefit from hearing those nuances from your perspective.
My what qualifies me to be a peer is the fact that I have lived experience in recovery
Yep.
and have reached a space in my recovery where I was able to sign up for and um, take a certification course to then use that lived experience and stand side by side with a person and say recovery here. I'm speaking from the standpoint of substance and behavioral health challenges.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people hear recovery and they're like, "Oh, substance use." It's a wider umbrella. SAMHSA probably has the best definition of recovery.
That's a highly personalized journey with four major dimensions: health, home, purpose, and community.
Hold up, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I have to look this up now because that wasn't ringing a bell in my brain. Um,
A process of change through which
there we
individuals
go.
improve their health and wellness, live self-directed lives, and strive to reach their full potential.
Absolutely. Point blank in the period. Because that's what it's all about. And as a peer support specialist, I'm there to show them that it's possible, that
Hmm.
they too can recover. I can absolutely relate to the emotions that they've been through. I can, and not just encouraging people, we try to empower people. Um, when they are speaking to us, we are listening intently so that when we continue forward in the dialogue, we can point out to them, like, hey, you were telling me about this. That was very courageous of you, or you showed a lot of determination.
Hmm.
And coming to realize one's own personal strengths can be a springboard in moving forward that process of change. I like to call it the tennis game because a lot of times I'll be meeting with somebody and they'll be like, well, what do you think I should do? And just lob it right back over the net.
Yep.
Well, what do you think you should do? Because
Right.
this is about you. I'm here to kind of help you, just give you feedback and see you have this goal. Okay. What do you think you need to do to accomplish to get to that endpoint?
Mm.
What they think all the various steps are to being able to accomplish that. And then looking at, okay, so we have these little smaller goals. How do we connect the dots?
Right. How do we make
Um,
this incremental? How do we make
yeah,
it step by step?
the man who trained me to be a facilitator over the peer program in Louisiana, a man by the name of Terrence Smithers, he would always tell us, he's like, as a peer, your job is to work yourself out of a job.
Yep.
The goal of your job is to get to a point with the person that you're providing services to that they no longer need you.
Yeah. That's something that I am so curious to hear too from that standpoint of being a peer. What is it like to witness the growth of the people that you work with having this perspective and peership between yourself and the people that you serve? What does that feel like to see people to see people accomplish their goals, and how has that impacted you?
It's always a very wonderful thing when you see the light bulb finally go off.
Mm.
It's not always an immediate thing. Sometimes it's like, you got one of those switches on the wall and you're slowly raising it up and the light slowly gets brighter until it's fully illuminated. That is the that is the greatest reward ever from this job, is to see somebody get to a space where that light bulb comes on and they begin to um, live that self-directed life. It's a little more challenging working on assertive community treatment to have those moments. They do happen.
Hmm. Mm.
Go ahead.
Well, I think something that's really important, having experience in assertive community treatment as well, persistence, because when we see patterns and we do everything that we can from our standpoint to support and help people take control and improve quality of life, that process in assertive community treatment is one that does. It requires a lot of patience from
Mhm.
from us, a lot of bandwidth and consistency and persistency, being that in many ways a large source of that for the people that we serve.
Absolutely. Um,
And in that same vein, I'm curious what you would tell someone who is entering this field now, who is entering the field of assertive community treatment, and what conviction has to travel intact to do this work.
First and foremost, it is okay to say this is not for me.
Yep.
Assertive community treatment, legitimately, because of the intensity of the services, is not for everybody. Even on the clinician level, even on the nurse level. Um, it is very high demand. It is very go, 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 go. Um, I like structure. Don't get me wrong. Um, but I've also come to kind of find my way in the ebb and flow of act work.
Mm.
Um, if uh, I guess to sum up that question that you asked, though, because I was thinking this came up right at the end of the last thing we were talking about.
Mhm.
Um, there's a quote that I found a couple years ago. Um, there was a larger quote, and the larger quote is phenomenal, but I'm just gonna put the most poignant part out. Um, Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent.
Mhm.
And that is by Calvin Coolidge.
Mm.
If you can be determined in your work, if you can be persistent, but as you were saying, you have to be patient. Um, Being persistent, having determination will are two key um, assets to have when doing assertive community treatment work.
Mm.
Um, Going back to the technology,
Mhm.
um, learning how to roll with the punches of, when things don't meet your needs,
Mhm.
um, is key. Um, and also, very, very important fact: stay on top of your own personal self care.
Yes.
Mandatory,
Yes.
almost, I will say, because burnout is real and burnout is sneaky. Um, I left the field for about a year because I had reached a place where I got to a place in my burnout where I had the internal moment to go, I need to take a step away because I don't want my my burnout and the way it's affecting me affecting somebody else that I'm trying to provide services to.
Hmm.
If you're burnt out, take a break. Make sure you use your PTO, like
Yes.
a couple days here and there, get a little refreshed. Um, and don't forget to ask questions. If you're just coming into this field, don't forget to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I will never forget. The only bad question is the one that goes unasked. You know, um, because at least even if you think it's a bad question, but you ask it anyways, at least you have an answer.
Very true. And I, in this, talking about, you know, quotes that stick with us, and having the courage to put yourself out there and ask questions. I am curious what you think for viewers, if we can take one idea away from this, what would it be? What is it?
Hmm. One idea: don't be afraid to stand up for what's right.
Yep. And that takes courage too. I think that's a huge piece. And I think that can even involve being one to ask questions and to say, what is this for? How can this help? What can we do differently?
Why are we
I,
making this decision?
yeah. And something that I've been reading on, and when we look at things from an existentialist point of view, and we talk about how existence precedes essence, which means that basically we are what we decide to do. We create our identity, we create our destiny by the choices that we make. One of the common pitfalls of this is described as slipping into an action. So taking things on autopilot, not not pursuing discourse, not being willing to ask hard questions, not being willing to deliberate and to have back and forth for topics and decisions that are complex and difficult. And I think that that is certainly, when you're talking about a key piece, something to take away is that don't be afraid stand up for what's right. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be afraid to make your voice heard, especially when that conviction is there, when this is something that can help, this is something that can bring light and can make change.
Yeah. Even if a person isn't a peer, they can be an advocate. Sometimes I think people might lose sight of that, is that, while there is clinical stuff and things like that, going back to the standing up for what is right, as a person providing services, my first responsibility is the person that I'm providing services to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to advocate for the betterment of that person, even when it causes a difficult conversation, or you need to make something heard, even when it's inconvenient.
Yep.
The quote by Calvin Coolidge that you brought up earlier is pretty amazing, and I think it is something that can help us land this plane and move towards a close. So I'll read it, which is: nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, "Press on," has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Thank you for being our first guest. It is always a pleasure, and I look forward to more great talks in the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Quentin.